WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
Danielle Johnson of New Richmond is the Democratic candidate for the 28th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Danielle Johnson, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Can you tell us, what is your campaign's key message? Why are you running for this office?
I am a veterinarian and I am a business owner. So I own a veterinary practice in Baldwin, and I would say, as such, I feel very prepared and eager to solve problems. Sometimes I make a joke that if a problem comes in within 3 feet of me, I feel the urge to try to solve it. So it lends itself very well to seeing things that could be improved around us as far as the state of Wisconsin and how things are going in Madison, and to try to want to lend a hand.
So if you're elected, what's an example of a bill or piece of legislation that would be a priority for you?
I would say one of the first priorities would be Medicaid expansion, to expand Badger Care. That would provide the opportunity for more Wisconsinites to be insured, and we are literally giving money away by not expanding Medicaid.
So if you're elected, you know you'll be entering during a biennial budget year, and the state is now projected to have more than a $4 billion surplus. What would be your top 2 priorities for use of that surplus funding?
Certainly looking at school funding would be a good use of those funds. So I hear a lot when I'm knocking on doors that people are very concerned. New Richmond, especially, that's the biggest city in the 28th district, recently had a referendum to, increase their taxes and increase in order to help pay for schools. And I think the system is outdated. There was a Blue Ribbon Commission on school funding, and the results were out a few years ago. And as far as I know, no action was taken by the legislature as far as that commission goes. And so if we have those resources of that excess funds, I think schools would be a top priority. Probably the second would be, I am a delegate from St. Croix County to the Wisconsin Conservation Congress. And so that's been a really interesting and educational role. And so I've been on the Congress for 2 years. And so when we go to the convention yearly, it has all the delegates together, and we hear members of the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, speak. I'd say it really crosses the divide as far as we all really agree that our Wisconsin natural resources are really precious, and that we need to help fund the DNR. The DNR has been doing with less for many, many years, and that would be the second area I would go with funding, would be to help the DNR.
What about tax cuts or tax reform? Are they part of your platform in any way?
Mainly in the form of reducing referendum property taxes, reducing property taxes. In that form. That's I think we need to do something about it, and school funding is the main way. when I talk to seniors, especially at doors, they are really concerned about that's not something, increase in property taxes is not something that they are able to budget for when they retire. You know, you can, of course, there's cost of living increases, but in order to, you know, when they have their property paid off, but they still have to pay increasing and increasing property taxes for retired people, that's a big deal.
You've been talking about education funding as a priority for you. As you know, K-12 education, also a leading issue for many Wisconsin voters. What do you think is working well in K-12 education? What do you think needs to change?
Um, you know, I think Wisconsinites still really value public education, and I think that's a really good plus. People are really ready to root for schools and to root for teachers. Speaking of rooting for teachers, though, I think one thing that's really not working is the support that teachers lost through Act 10 a few years ago. And so I am really for teachers to be able to advocate for themselves and to be able to, you know, when I was growing up, teachers were really valued. You know, a teacher was able to have a family supporting wage, and that's really not the case anymore. Teachers have really kind of taken a beating as far as their motives being questioned and their expertise being questioned. And I would like to see that go back to teachers being really supported and viewed as some of the most valuable members of our community.
Would you like Act 10 to be overturned?
I think that we need to get back to teachers being able to organize in order to advocate for themselves.
What is the future of Wisconsin's higher education system, 4- and 2-year colleges as well as technical colleges, look like to you? And what changes do you think the legislature should focus on?
Yeah, once again, that is where our funding for public education at the universities has really fallen behind. Because the 28th district is an open seat, I had an opportunity to meet with leaders at the universities of Wisconsin and also at the school closest to the 28th district, which is the University of Wisconsin River Falls. And I was extremely impressed with how they have made their budgets work and how dedicated they are to making sure that anyone who wants to go to college in Wisconsin, any Wisconsin young person who wants to go to college should be able to afford it. And I think that's really important for the future. Our economic future in Wisconsin is to be able to support our university system and make sure that we graduate really educated and educated professionals. I'm a veterinarian, and I recently was able to hire a university grad who started at the University of Wisconsin River Falls and went to the veterinary school, and she's amazing. And you know, those types of relationships between business and education are super important, and we need to make sure that that continues in the future and not fall behind like we have in funding.
Do you support full funding for the Universities of Wisconsin system?
We have fallen behind. There's the benchmark for what is expected for the state to provide they're under budget for that, and I would like to see that go back up.
What do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose to address it?
We have more people leaving the workforce than we have entering it, and that is going to get worse. The district that I hope to represent is largely rural, and we know that our rural communities are going to get hit the hardest by worker shortages. You know, cities like Baldwin, where my business is, Glenwood City, Roberts, you know, all of those communities really rely on industry. And if we're not going to be able to find workers, those communities will face hardship.
I have a couple more workforce questions for you. Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
Absolutely. I'd say part of the drain on our small communities really is sort of exporting money from our communities. We see it in a lot of industries where or businesses that are being purchased up by investors, and they drain money out of the community. Same thing with hiring workers outside of the community is, when we hire community members, those dollars stay in the community, and that's really important for the economy.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this issue, and what do you think should be done about it?
Yeah, well, I think that kind of contract kind of work has been going on since really the night since I entered the workforce. So it's not anything new, but we know because of that, we also know that it is not good for workers, and those worker protections that happen when you are a hired employee of a business are really important. I think our government has relied on employers to provide a lot of benefits like health insurance and employer benefits. And in order for those to be sustained, then people need to be employed, legally employed by the company and not contracted.
Affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Is it rent control, building more rentals, or some other solution?
Well, your emphasis is a lot on rent, and I think that's important. But I see there being here in the 28th district. I was just having a discussion yesterday about some houses that were going up, and they were very large, kind of high-end homes. And so, we're seeming to have kind of like an economic divide between people who rent but where are the homes that people can get into on an entry level basis? And because we know that home ownership is really the almost the only way that that a regular person can start to build wealth, and it's really important for security and retirement. And so being able to get young families into homes that are affordable, I think also needs to be a big priority.
Is there a state policy that supports that building of those types of homes you're talking about?
Not that I am aware of, but it seems like we need to do something because companies are incentivized to make the most money possible, and it seems like building more expensive homes is the way for them to do that. But figuring out a way where we can incentivize those more affordable homes would be something that would be really interesting to look into.
Moving on to healthcare, medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in Western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
I think part of the issue is of hospital closures has to do with how hospitals in rural areas are reimbursed for services. And so that makes it very tricky for healthcare facilities, healthcare services to be able to figure out how to stay independent and thrive. So it's interesting. I was spent 9 years on the board of Western Wisconsin Health in Baldwin, and that little hospital is going to deliver over 400 babies this year because it's not possible to have a baby in River Falls or Menominee anymore because those OB departments have closed. And that's just not acceptable for women to have to travel to obtain basic services like that. And I think the state does need to intervene to come up with solutions to make sure basic services can stay open and reasonably distanced from where people live.
Do you support increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate to hospitals?
I would. And some of the as we ex as our population expands too, when rural health clinics lose their designation, that could also lead to more hospital closures. And so that is something that we really need to anticipate and work on before it happens.
What about mental health care? It's a growing concern for many Wisconsinites and for state and county budgets. What are you hearing on that issue in your district, and what are some solutions?
Yeah, I think reimbursement once again is an issue. Insurance companies don't reimburse well for mental health services. Insurance companies don't cover it well, and we know these are services that are uh, increasingly in need. And finding enough providers is also very difficult. And so, I think regulation of the insurance industry is really where we need to look for that.
How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
Well, it seems like Wisconsin it currently is just sort of taking the stance of just being this vague limbo. I would like to see the law, the 1840, what is it, 1847 law?
1849.
1849, I was close. Um, I would like to see that repealed. I think the meaning of it is completely irrelevant to our time today, and it shouldn't even be a threat that it could possibly be enforced. So I would definitely be looking for there to be more clarity in what exactly are we doing in Wisconsin.
Do you support any number of weeks as a limit on abortion?
I am firmly I am firmly pro-choice, and it just really boils down to it's not the government's business what is happening inside a person's uterus. It's just really not. And so, when it comes down to, Roe versus Wade, when it was still the law of the land, did not increase abortion. Abortion has always existed and it will exist. But what actually numbers went down have gone down drastically since Roe v. Wade was first the law of the land. And we know that abortion should be, everyone's goal, everyone who's pro-choice, our goal is to have it be safe, number one, and rare. And we know that it becomes more rare when people are educated and have access to healthcare. So in order to combat or, to combat abortion numbers, it's better done with education and access to healthcare than by regulating women's bodies.
Moving on to transportation. What are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these are addressed and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you live in the northern states, potholes are gonna be the topic of discussion no matter what. And I think for our area here, I would like to see easier ways for people to commute to work, and have more infrastructure that is based on, based on the future as far as potentially railway systems. I think I'm a proud electric bicycle owner, and I've done a lot of campaigning on my bicycle. And so I've seen a lot of infrastructure problems related to being able to use bicycles in the area. And I think being able, whenever we plan to build roads and things like that, to have those things in mind. How are pedestrians, how are people who are using alternative modes of transportation also able to get around?
PFAS and other water contaminants are a concern for a growing number of Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you address it?
Absolutely. I think water in general is really an important issue. And getting back to being a delegate of the Wisconsin Conservation Congress, it's amazing how you can have people who are like me, what they call a non-consumptive mainly, to people who fish, to people who trap, to people who enjoy our natural resources, absolutely become quiet and because our water is sacred. I mean, everyone really believes that, and we need to preserve clean water. And we know that we're having well contamination with nitrates and with PFAS. And so I think it's important on the state level and the legislature to hold polluters accountable. That's something that has not been done at all, is to find out where are these coming from? What can we do to make sure companies are no longer making these chemicals that are getting into our water, number one, and what can we do to prevent them from contaminating our water, and what we can do for cleanup.
We're down to our final two questions. How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
I would say, as far as, definitely, I think my opponent is, I'll be honest, he hasn't done a lot of campaigning. I haven't really heard very much from him. It's an open seat, so there's no incumbent there. I think he's very extreme on the abortion issue. So we definitely a big contrast there. I think my opponent would vote for a Wisconsin abortion ban, which is something I would be firmly against. And I'd say the other issue probably that we have more in common is that I think he's very business oriented, and as a business owner, I think we would, I'm a business owner. I have boots on the ground as far as what it takes to own a business and keep workers engaged. And so I think, although we can have an interest in business, being an actual business owner makes a difference.
Final question. Let's say you're elected this fall and you get a magic wand you can use in the state capitol and to resolve one issue in a way that brings all people and parties together. What's the issue?
Childcare, I think, is the issue that I would work on in order for us to come up with solutions in order to solve that problem. It has a ripple effect that is related to business. It's related to the quality of life of young families. I think it's really, when I talk to young families who say one person works during the days and one person works at night, I just think, what kind of quality life is that? I think it's, when it's related to crossing the aisle, one thing I talked about to a lot of voters is I think the hyperpartisanship that we are experiencing right now in this part of our history is really largely manufactured, and it doesn't serve us. I think if we are really interested in empowering our constituents, the people that elect us, we are obligated to work together and cut through that hyperpartisanship, because we are at our best when we work together to solve problems.
Well, thank you, Danielle Johnson of New Richmond, the Democratic candidate for the 28th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Danielle Johnson, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.